So as I was referring to, today is a unique day. It's a unique day because we're hitting pause on our study of Mark, and what we're going to be talking about is the Global Leadership Summit. If you know me, you know that I'm a leadership junkie, not because I'm an expert in leadership, but because for a long time I've known that I need to get better as a leader. And what we believe about leadership is in many ways kind of the theme, or at least the heartbeat behind this year's Global Leadership Summit, which is this: that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That was actually coined by John Maxwell. I'll never forget when I heard that then means that you cannot self-select out. Some of you right now, when I just say the word leader, you're like, not me. But here's what we believe. We actually believe every single person is a leader. Why? Because leadership is influence. And if you still have a pulse, and that's most of us in here, I think, that means that you are still influencing people, whether you know it or not. The question is, who and where is your influence taking people? Is it helping people? Is your influence leading people to great places? Is your influence taking people to the person of Jesus? Is your influence making lives better? Is your influence ushering in justice and compassion in this world? Is your influence making this place look a little bit more like heaven? Leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. And so today is Summit Sunday. Today we're talking about the Global Leadership Summit and why I want every single one of you to join me this August 10th and 11th. Here in a second, three friends of ours are going to be on stage, and they're going to share with you the impact that the summit has had on their lives and the things that they're leading. Before they do that, we're going to watch a clip. Now, this is a clip, it's about 6 minutes long or so, of Danielle Strickland. She's one of my favorite preachers. I've heard her preach a number of times. Girl can bring it. And she's an incredible storyteller. And so this was one of my favorite parts of last year's summit. And in many ways, it's going to kind of cue up and set up today's conversation about the Global Leadership Summit. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video clip now.
Now, the whole leadership journey for me, really, when I was 19 years old, I had the wonderful privilege of volunteering in Russia with the Salvation Army when it re-entered after the Soviet Union collapsed, and the churches were invited back in. And I had the incredible privilege of just being like a gopher, like a personal assistant to an officer I affectionately call Captain America. I call him Captain America because he was American and he was a captain. You see what I did there? But also I call him Captain America because he is like strong, 6'4" and chiseled and like in charge and like in a uniform. When he walks into a room, he says jump, you say how high? And he was also just a remarkably gifted leader. He was charismatic, he was a deal maker. As a matter of fact, he had arranged for all of the leftover B-ration soldier food that was left after the first Gulf War to be shipped to the Salvation Army in Moscow to be distributed by them. And at the same time, he had arranged for Boris Yeltsin to declare the Salvation Army the official social services center for Moscow, including an office in the Kremlin. I mean, the man was a legend. He was Captain America. And while I was there, he had to go home, raise some more funds and stuff, and visit his family. And so they were sending in a replacement for him. And they asked if I would stay on to kind of help smooth things along and drive the car and get her some coffee. And I said it'd be an honor. So I remember the day it happened. I was standing at the tarmac waiting for Commissioner Ingrid Lindbergh, her name was, to replace Captain America. And I watched kind of with horror as she descended from the plane. I mean, she just emerged small, old, just tiny, wrinkled and shriveled and like happy but nice. I remember her kind of like shuffling over to me and taking me by the hand and saying, "You must be Danielle. I am so pleased to meet you." And I remember my mouth saying, "I'm pleased to meet you too," but my heart saying, "We're gonna die." Like, what was the Salvation Army thinking? I just was like, this is the end of the world as we know it. They've just replaced Captain America with my grandma. So I explained to her that the events of the next day were just so important. We were going to this secret prison. It was infamous in the heart of Moscow, and no one had arranged to be able to get in there except for Captain America. And he had made this trip possible, and he'd made this deal with these reporters because no one could get access, so they made a deal with us to come with us on the trip. So I said, tomorrow, we're right on track. And she said, yes, I've been briefed. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the morning. So I remember I went and picked up Time Magazine, Newsweek reporters in the back of the car, and I'm driving around, and I go pick up Commissioner Ingrid Lindbergh. She gets in the car, and we're driving. And as we're driving to this prison, these two reporters, they start chatting, as only cynical American reporters can do, outdoing each other in the infamous horror of these prisons that they can't wait to expose, just like exchanging these like terrible stories and their like excitement about getting in on this trip so they could finally, tell the truth and expose the warden and all sorts of things. And I'll never forget Commissioner Ingrid Lindbergh looking at me and saying, pull over the car. My immediate thought, of course, was that she probably had to pee. She's old and she's female, so. But so I pulled over the car dutifully, and then I just walked with like shock and horror as she said to these reporters. She turned around, she spoke to these guys. She said, look, I just feel like you haven't been properly briefed. And they look at her. She says, see, I feel like you're not really quite on board with the mission of the Salvation Army. See, I called the warden this morning, she said, and I assured him that we were coming with good news. We were coming with hope. I mean, we really literally were coming with light bulbs for people living in the dark. I mean, we were coming on this mission with Jesus. I mean, I remember when she said the word Jesus, I was like, ah, she said Jesus. She said, I just feel like no one's properly, like I promised the warden we were coming with hope, with good news. It feels like you're not on board. So she said, one, I wanted to brief you. And two, she said, I wanted to give you an opportunity, if you can't get on board with our mission, to get out of the car. I remember dying inside, what just happened? Like, I just remember thinking Captain America's gonna be so disappointed in me. And these reporters, I've never seen anything like it. These cynical American, mature, experienced reporters just shrunk into 6-year-old boys. They just went, we're so sorry, ma'am. We're on board, ma'am. We promise, ma'am. We promise, ma'am. We're like, please don't make us get out of the car, ma'am. just. And I was like thinking to myself, who has to pee now, We got to this prison, and I'm not even kidding you. These reporters, I've never seen anything like it. They're tapping her on their shoulder. Do you think it would be okay if we took a picture over there? Do you think it'd be okay if we talked to that person over there? It was unbelievable. Then that night, Time Magazine reporter, he faxes through to our office the final report that he's written for Time Magazine. He writes on the top of the report, for the commissioner's approval. I said, who made her the editor of Time Magazine? Like, how did this just happen? The next morning, he's leaving town. He comes in, he says, do you think the commissioner would have time to see me? I said, I'll check her very busy and important schedule. And I show him in, She says, can I help you? He said, I was just wondering, she said, if you could pray with me one more time. She said, when you prayed in the van that day, I just felt something different. She said, would you pray with me before I have to leave town again? And that was the day for me, that was the moment for me when the trajectory of what it meant to be a leader changed forever. That was the day when I actually decided I really didn't want to be Captain America. I wanted to be a retired grandma. Everything changed. And actually, I kind of started at that moment in my life. I'm so thankful that God gave me the opportunity to see the difference between spiritual leadership and just good, regular leadership.
Yeah, pretty awesome clip. And, that was one of the many moments. I'm sitting here last year. I don't know, Johnny, we had probably a few hundred of us in this room. And I had this thought many times last year, but that was one of the moments. I'm like, I wish every single person in our church was sitting here. To be forced to ask that question, is there a difference between leadership and spiritual leadership? To be asked the question, man, who has really changed the trajectory of our leadership, many moments, but that was one of them. And so I have invited up some friends of mine, some friends of yours. This is Todd, Andrea, and Nancy. Let's thank them for coming up on stage to talk with us a little bit. And so our first question, we'll start with you, Todd. How has the GLS, the Global Leadership Summit, how has it affected the trajectory of your leadership?
As a business owner, I'd say it affected me the most with giving me more self-awareness of how I lead. As business owners, entrepreneurs, we tend to be wired a little different. We're hard charging, we take ground, we push, we grow, we never stop. And sometimes I've caught myself being a boss and not a leader, and trying to rally my team and lead them instead of push them to charge. I think that's been one of the best things for us is not only in the beginning, my partner and I used to go to the GLS and we'd learn all these things, we'd come back and we'd teach them, and finally we just said, you know, we need to bring our team. So we'd bring everybody, and they were able to kind of rally around the mission of the way we want to focus and the way we want to grow. And it's turned out it basically gave us a world-class culture and world-class team that we could not have done without the GLS.
So you bring your whole staff?
We bring our whole office staff. We're asphalt paving contractors, so we've got crews, Spanish crews that are in the back, and we weren't able to bring them, but we actually hosted a mini GLS at our office 2 weeks ago where we had the whole GLS from 2015 translated in Spanish.
Come on.
So that nothing was lost in translation with them.
That's super cool. I do want to I want these people to know, our people to know. So the summit has had such probably immeasurable impact on you personally, certainly on your company, to the degree that you're wanting to share this with people very far from here. Share a little bit of what God's been doing in your heart and your partner's heart and what you guys are doing as a company.
We owe so much to the GLS, and it's totally transformed the way we lead our company, what's happening within our company. It's helped me be a better father and a better husband, and I just feel like the impact I got from it, we have to find a way to have other people be impacted by it as well. With the election and the wall and all this other stuff going on with Mexico, God kind of put on our heart that we need to do something to impact Mexico. We've got 16 or 17 guys on our crews that are all from Mexico, and we wanted to do something that could make a difference in Mexico. There's so much corruption and so much poor leadership in Mexico. We decided that we needed to help the GLS grow in Mexico. So we funded 5 host sites in Mexico so that we can transform leaders, communities, and eventually Mexico.
Phenomenal. I love it.
And it's our hope to do it every year, to continually open up sites so that eventually the place where our team members are from, that are some of the most important guys to me, if we can affect their families and their hometowns, we're going to do it every year.
It's incredible. You know, I asked Todd, we have breakfast quite a bit, and we talk about leadership. He's helped me with the summit this year, but some of you guys are business leaders. Some of you guys and girls, you lead out in the business world, and so Todd kind of represents that segment of our church. We have a whole bunch of people in our church that can resonate with what Todd does. But Andrew, we asked for you to be on this little panel. You have led in so many different ways in our church, in extraordinary ways. The past few years, though, you've been leading in kind of a new way. And so share a little bit about that and how the summit has really affected the trajectory of your leadership.
Yeah, so I get the opportunity for the last 3 years to focus on 3 little dudes, a 9, 6, and a 1-year-old. Well, the 1-year-old just the last year. But yeah, and you know, the Leadership Summit, even as a stay-at-home mom, has impacted me. And I would tell you that one of the big ways that it has helped me is to realize that I need to be intentional about growing. And if I'm not intentional about growing, then I am gonna get stuck, or I'm gonna end up where I'm not gonna be the parent that I want to be. And as I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about this analogy of me sitting in a canoe or a boat and having a paddle. And if I'm not intentional about building my strength, and I'm not intentional about knowing which direction I want to go, and if I'm not intentional about like actually putting in the hard work, I'm gonna just drift into the lily pads, or I'm gonna go to another part of the lake that I'm not going to want to be in. So the Leadership Summit has helped me recognize, and then it's also been a tool to help me grow as a parent, but also in my influence with friends, in my marriage, and just all the arenas that I lead or have influence.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of, it was 2005, the first summit I attended. So I used to be an athlete, and I thought, that's emphasis on used to be, and so I thought I was going to play professional baseball. I mean, that's what I thought, and some of my friends thought, and my parents definitely thought. And then my career ended, and then I went into the workplace, and I worked in the business world for a year. And then I really felt like God say, ministry is what I have for you, and so I fought him on that. And then he won, because he always wins. And so I find myself in ministry at this little church called Willow Creek, right up the street. Like 8 billion people go there. And so there I am as, I think I was 26 years old in ministry for the first time. And all I'd really known my whole life was sports. And I'll never forget, they were talking about the Global Leadership Summit. This is right when I was a brand new staff member. And they said, John, it's mandatory, you're on staff, you have to attend it. I'd never been to anything like this, ever. And I'll never forget sitting there for the first time at the Global Leadership Summit. One statement has impacted me, and it connects to what you were saying, Andrea. It was a statement from Pastor Hybels that he says, you have to take responsibility for becoming a better leader. You can't outsource that. And I don't know what happened. I mean, the Holy Spirit took that statement and pressed that into my heart to the degree that was a life-changing statement for me. Truth be told, I'd never thought about leadership in my life until that moment. And from that moment on, the intentionality that you're speaking to, you're right. We cannot drift into becoming a better leader. You cannot outsource this thing. It's something we have to own. It's something we have to say, you know what? It's up to me to steward this influence. And we all have it. We have to become good stewards of this, and the summit is one of those ways that really, really helps us grow in our influence. And so, Nancy, I asked you to be up here because you're awesome, number one. Number two, you volunteer and lead in our church in a lot of different ways, but also you're a teacher for, I think, 17 years. And so share from your perspective, both as a volunteer leader in our church, also as a teacher, how has the summit impacted the trajectory of your leadership?
Sure. So I attended the GLS last year for the first time as a volunteer through an invitation from my girlfriend, Kathy. And it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. When I think about all the professional development that we go through as at work and as a teacher, nothing compares to what I experienced during those 2 days. And as a teacher, I think about how something that I really took with me was how to be more intentional. Both of you have already mentioned that. And just that intentionality with the people that I see every single day, whether it's an administrator or a teacher or even our students, just really, and sometimes that just means listening to them. That's where you're being intentional and choosing to take that time to listen to people and really work on relationships. So at work, I do that. I can talk about my faith with my coworkers, but when it comes to students, there's kind of a fine line there. But in the actions that I take, I want students to still be able to see that part of who I am and who I've become. And just feedback that I get from people that I do lead in 2 separate leadership roles that I have at my school. That just kind of confirms, this is what part of what GLS has taught me to do, and now I'm putting that into action in my workplace. And as a volunteer here at Mission, also becoming more intentional with the people that I lead, and that has become just growing in the relationships that I have with them, and them also helping me grow in my faith. And sometimes that just means asking them, what can I pray for you? What's a need that you have? And it's not just about coming in and playing that role and going over notes and, all of that other stuff that comes with it, but also just being a person. And whether it's, a student who is a volunteer or a parent who is a volunteer, and just growing in our faith together.
The second question I want to ask all you guys, we'll start with you, Nancy, is, as I said before, this truism that leadership is influence, therefore we're all leaders, every single person. And so if leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, how has that idea that I know has been kind of, in many ways, built and established through this summit, how is that impacting your life, that leadership is influence and everyone has influence?
So the impact that it's had in me is just the idea of adding value to people, and that's something that I took from John Maxwell's talk last year at GLS. And he shared a story about how he is constantly reminding his grandchildren about adding value to people and making them feel important and doing things for them. And one of his grandsons shared how he had simply held the door for people that day, and that was how he added value to people. So I kind of want to do my holding doors with people that I work with, as well as volunteers here at Mission. So just to show how important it is when they show up here every Sunday for our volunteers, and just how valuable they are in helping our children, those of us that have children in Mission Kids or Mission students, that they are an important part of helping us grow that faith that we want our children to have, because they will one day be the ones filling the seats in this auditorium. And the same with the people that I work with as a teacher.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories from last year was a lady came by invitation of a friend, and she didn't speak English and didn't understand English, and the summit is in English. And so this was our first time last year being a host site, and we're like, what do we do with this? And Nancy, I know it was you and Kathy, you're like, we got this. And to see you and hear the story of you sitting next to this lady, the entire summit, translating into her ear in Spanish, it gets me. Translating in her ear everything that was being spoken. To me, number one, that's Mission Church at its best. But secondly, that's you guys saying, this isn't just a person. No, this person has influence, and leadership is influence. Therefore, we're going to help her get better. One of my favorite stories, almost got emotional there. We're going to move on to this one.
That was pretty awesome. I forgot about it.
Yeah, awesome. So Andrea.
Yes. The summit has really helped me believe in my influence in this season of life. Because in this season of life, I haven't been given a job title, or I haven't been given positional leadership in any way. And, 3 years ago, we had just brought our son home, Joshua, home from Uganda. I was living there for a couple months. I was coming home and entering back into the season of being a stay-at-home mom. And I remember feeling really isolated and just really feeling like, I don't really influence a lot. I'm not really a leader. And I was invited to go to the summit, and I almost didn't go because of the belief that I'm not a leader. But I'm so glad I did go, because it was in that summit that God really showed me that I do have influence with my children, more people than with my children, but really showed me that my job is to disciple these boys into adults, and that is influence and that is leadership, and it really shifted my belief in the truth that I am a leader. And so it's really easy for us stay-at-home moms to believe that we're not leaders, but the truth is that we are, and the summit has really helped me see and believe that.
I love it. Todd, from your perspective as a business owner and leader.
I think if you take society's idea on what a leader is, it's the boss, the big shot, big guy, and then everybody else. And the statement that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, is so true. And if you take one of the main thoughts and theories behind the GLS, that armed with enough humility, a business guy can learn from a pastor, and a pastor can learn from a teacher, and a teacher can learn from a stay-at-home mom, that we all have influence, and we all have been given that influence by God so that we can steward it to bring glory to Him. It's a phenomenal thing what the GLS does at any scope, at any stage of life that you're on.
I love it. So I'd love for the three of you to speak. You'll each get a turn, but I want to make your best pitch. All right. So today is like Summit Sunday, and today Mission has an opportunity to sign up on the app to get registered. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but the rate's going to change here in a few weeks, so you get the ridiculous price breakdown over the next couple weeks. So I want you to each talk to the person that's thinking about it. They're on the fence, and they're kind of arguing with themselves right now why they should or shouldn't do this. So Todd, if you'll speak to the business person, Andrea to the stay-at-home mom, and then Nancy for you for the volunteer or teacher. What would you say to them?
I think I'd say two things. First one, if you take Psalms 24:6, it says that victory is won through many advisors. And as a business owner, I want to have the best minds advising me in the entire world. And that's what the GLS does for you. I mean, you're talking CEOs of Ford, Boeing, Facebook, Google, Melinda Gates, world-class people that you would never have the opportunity to hear what's on their mind about how they led and how they've grown their company. So that is absolutely priceless. The second would be, as business owners, we all want to have the best company, the best team that we can. We want world class. If you want world class, you have to be a world class leader first before your company can make it there. And I know it's hard to take 2 days off of work. You know, I mean, God forbid, how are they going to turn on their computers without you? If you can take the 2 days off so that you can be at your highest level the next 363 days, you owe it to yourself, your company, you owe it to your family to learn how to lead and be the best that you can possibly be.
Awesome. Andrea.
Yes. I have 2 things for you. The first one is we have this phrase in our house when there's a new food, and it's, you have to at least try it once because it might change your life. You might love it. So, same for you. You have to try the GLS at least once because it might change your life. It might be something that is amazing for you. So try it at least once. The second thing is logistics are hard. I have 3 kids, and finding, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., it's really hard to find childcare, the resources to put into that, but it's so worth it. I remember one year I had 4 different babysitters over the 2 days, and I had to leave at lunch to go with the handoff. And even one year I had Thursday taken care of, but then Thursday night, 5:30, I'm driving up my kids to Milwaukee to stay overnight with their grandparents, and then driving back. So it is hard. It's hard to figure out the logistics, but it is so worth it. And I just want to encourage you to go through the time, energy, and resources to make it happen.
Nancy.
I just think that there's just so much to gain and really nothing to lose. And I do also understand, because being a parent, you have to figure out, what am I going to do with my kids? But I think for those things that are really priorities to us, we make them happen. Whether it's something, we want to purchase, we have goals, and there are things that we want to make happen. And I think this is one of those that should be up there on our list, because as a teacher, there was so much that I was able to bring back with me this past year. And I know that because I've gotten feedback from the people in the team that I lead, and I can just see that difference. So that just confirms, okay, I'm taking what I learned in this amazing experience last year at GLS, and I'm applying it. I'm applying it in how I interact with administrators, with teachers, with students that I'm with all day. And then I also bring it home, and it's something that I can apply to my family as well as the volunteers here at Mission. So absolutely everything to gain from saying yes to something like this.
Hey, let's give these guys a big round of applause for thinking. You can take that with you. So good. So I want to give a crack at this too. I want to give my best pitch I got. Here's what I think. God has an extraordinarily large vision for your life and for our church. He really does. And at times, what we do is we shrink that vision. And you've heard it in 3 different kind of ways. At times, we can shrink the vision for our church and certainly for our lives. And what I'm hoping and I'm praying is that the Holy Spirit does nothing but breathe life and breath into your life to expand the vision that He has for you. As we said earlier, we are not done. That one statement, like, if you want to understand our church, I mean, that is our church. We're not done. And you're not done. And here's what I know, whether you're a business owner, you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a teacher, whatever, you're a volunteer leader at our church, God has more for you. And as you step into the more, because you're going to step into the more, my question is, will you be ready for it? Will you be equipped for it? And here's what we know. When you're in the moment, it's too late to get ready, is it not? When you step into that moment, it's too late to prepare. When you step into that moment, it's like way too late for us to then get ready to give our best thoughts, our best encouragement, our best thinking, our best strategy, our best leadership. It's too late. And so here's what I believe. God has more for you, and I want to help you be equipped and get ready so that when you step into the more, you're ready. And you can then leverage your influence, that it helps people, so that your influence can actually lead people to a better place. So that my influence and our influence can lead people to Jesus Himself. And so here's what we believe. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That means every single one of us is a leader. And I want every single one of us to be at the summit. And I know that's crazy, but I think crazy a lot. We have capacity for 700 and I think 86 people in this auditorium. Last year we had 320 people. We didn't really ask you last year because I wanted to make sure this could actually work well first, and it did. It worked really well. I want you to be there. I want you to be there. I want you to be with me. And together, we're going to experience these moments where we look at each other and we say, man, isn't this incredible? We've invested in our own influence, and God is going to get glory for this, and the lives of those around us will be better because of it. Like I said, today is the day for us to sign up. You can sign up through our church app. It's one button, click it, and then follow the information. If you sign up today, we've got a Moleskine journal for you in the lobby. If you have questions, if you don't have a phone or left it in the car, stop by the table in the lobby. We can get you signed up for the Leadership Summit. If you're planning to be on vacation, change your vacation. I'm kind of joking on that, but I would love for us to pack the house. And here's the thing. Maybe you have a friend. Maybe you have two friends. Maybe you have a team that you lead. Wouldn't it be cool if they could be sitting next to you? It's one of the best evangelistic opportunities you'll have in the entire year to get them into this house to learn from business leaders, but also learn from church leaders at the same time. Now, here's what I'm going to read as I finish. We're going to sing a song to close up today, and this song was not written last week. It was not written last year, and I love new songs, and we sing them all the time. We always will. But there's just something about an old song. You know what I'm saying? Like a real old song. And this song was written in the 1800s, in 1865. It's a song, Jesus Paid It All. And I don't know what it is, but when I get to sing and we get to sing these old songs that were written decades and decades ago as a young guy, man, it's just powerful. I think it's powerful for us to remember that, man, we are part of the family of God, and that didn't begin last week. And so we're going to sing this song, Jesus Paid It All. And the reason we're going to sing this song is because whenever I talk about leadership, and whenever we talk about leadership, I hope that our focus and attention quickly moves to the greatest leader that has ever led, Jesus Christ. And here's what we know. Here's what we know. There has never been anyone that has had more influence, that has walked the earth than Jesus. And yet look at how and look at where his influence has taken humanity. Think about it. A carpenter from a no-name town, the wrong side of the tracks. They said nothing good comes from Nazareth. He invited 12 knuckleheads, like me and you, to come follow. And they have gone on, and now we have gone on to literally change the world. When I think about leadership, I think about the leadership of Jesus, whose influence has only made this world a better place. And I love it. It's recorded in Philippians chapter 2. Listen to this. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. If you want to attend the summit to make your name better and to build your brand, perhaps, then please don't come. But if you and I want to get better as a leader so that others can be better off, then this is the environment we need to be in. We need to lead like Jesus. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility. Say that with me. In what? In humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests. And I'm guilty of this too. I'm guilty of this too because I have flesh like you do. But God's word calls us to a higher way of leadership, that we do not look to our own interests. No, we look to the interests of others. In verse 5, it says, in your relationships, and that includes those in your home or apartment or in the workplace, those in your school or in your dorm room. It says, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used for his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. You want to understand leadership? You read Philippians chapter 2. Jesus Christ, the greatest leader who paid it all. And so we're going to sing this old song from the 1800s. I'd love for you to stand to your feet, and our team is going to lead us. Let me pray. God, thank you for a church that wants to get better as followers of Jesus Christ. We're not done, not even close. God, you have incredible plans for each of us, and you have an incredible vision for our church. And God, we want to be intentional this summer. We don't want to take the summer off. No, we actually want to get better. We want to grow. And God, what we ask right now is that you would use this year's Global Leadership Summit in an extraordinary way. God, I ask that this place would be packed with humble people who want to get better, who want to lead more like Jesus. And God, as we finish up today, we are grateful that you have paid it all. A leadership that came to serve and to give his life as a ransom for all of us. And so for the guy searching this morning, for the woman searching this morning, may they understand what they've been looking for their whole life is found in one person, and his name is Jesus Christ. And so it's in his name that we elevate this song and we sing it as it's been sung for well over 100 years. And we ask this in his name. Amen.